Okay, here we go. We are live, Lottie. We are live and people are coming in.
Well, they
Okay.
come in quickly, don't they? Wow.
Yeah, they do. They do. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Please do let us know in the chat where you are joining us from. We do like to see where people are coming in from all around the world, which is wonderful. Let's have a look. Can I see the chat? Yes, I can. Greetings, Pete Moore. Welcome from
Hey, Pete,
Essex.
legend.
Great to have you here. Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you. Here we go. Laurel from Brisbane. Oh, New Zealand.
New
Habana.
Zealand. Oh,
Welcome. New Zealand,
Paravesh. G'day,
Australia.
Paravesh.
I love it when we see
Whoa.
people we know. Oh, what was that? Not sure what that was. Okay. Andy from Adelaide. Welcome, welcome. Denmark, New Zealand, Somerset, Jersey, Switzerland. Fantastic. Come on in. Come on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I think we had about 1,000 people sign up, Lorimer, and we usually get about a quarter joining live. So we'll just give people a couple of minutes to come on in.
Oh,
Nadine from Holland,
Priyanka.
welcome. Texas,
G'day.
Susan, hello.
G'day.
Glasgow, Will, lovely,
This is
lovely,
cool. I've never
welcome.
done this before. Mick back. G'day, Mick from rainy Surbiton. I feel like one of those radio hosts. I've got Mick from rainy Surbiton on the phone. Mick, what have you got to say? Well,
What are you
my
drinking this
auntie.
morning? Lars has got, what have you got, Lars, to drink?
I have a lovely Shiraz voted the world's best Shiraz a couple of years ago in the New York Wine Show,
Fantastic.
from about 20 minutes away from my house, actually.
Hmm,
I know the winemaker, so that's
very
very, very
nice.
handy. Otherwise, I wouldn't be investing. But yeah, cool. This is
Welcome.
great. I've never done this before, Joe, where you just sort of looked.
Are you kidding? It's
uh,
so
There's
interesting. The
you
whole,
and
like,
Medicaid.
round the whole world. Oh, yeah, that's it. And so many people come back time after time. It's lovely. We have regulars. So it's great to have you, Mick. If you're having a coffee, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Manchester. Be fun. Have a couple of beers together.
We need to talk about that, Mick. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be great.
Okay.
It's going to be great. Green, you legend. Hi. Okay,
Thank
I
you.
should pay attention to you, Joe. I'm going to turn that off.
Right.
Otherwise, it's too
Okay. We're gonna get going because we're bound to run out of time. So here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and a very warm welcome to this third and final webinar in our series with Professor Lorimer Moseley. How you doing, Lorimer? What are you up to?
doing really well. I've had a very big 2 days. I caught the bus from Adelaide to Melbourne, which is my preferred mode of transport, but we got delayed, so it ended up being a 14-hour journey, which is quite a long time. But uh, great getting some work done on grants, and then just great client stuff today. Really, really tough, but great. Yes, it was an
Good.
entirely clinical day today.
Okay.
Flew home this evening, and here I am.
Lovely. Thank you. And thanks for coming back for this third webinar. That's fantastic. Can't wait for this one.
Yeah, pleasure.
Going to be super cool. So my name is Joanna Taylor and I am Director of Noi Group Europe. So anybody joining us for the first time, welcome. And if you haven't caught the first two sessions yet, they are both on the YouTube channel. I'm going to drop the link to that clinical discussions channel in the chat in just a minute. In session one, Lorimer took us through why pain science still matters and what has changed in recent years. And session two went behind the curtain, the values, vulnerabilities, and real world constraints behind good pain education. And today, we're going to go even more practical and we're talking about the tools that actually make education land. We have a Q&A opportunity a bit later on, but do drop your questions in the chat or in the Q&A and we'll get to as many of those as we can. And we do run out of time normally, so we won't get to them all. So if you have a question, try and get it in early. That would be great. Thank you. So, yes, what made you want to focus today, Lorimer, on practical tools for this third session?
Mick will love this. I think it probably reflects the space I was in when you asked me, um, because I was in this like we're doing a lot of work at the moment in vulnerable groups, um, refugee groups, migrant groups, people who, for whatever reason, don't want to engage with the healthcare system. And a constant part of that conversation is how do how do we can how do we impart these core messages that a bucket load of data is telling us I think I would now say are necessary but not sufficient for recovery from chronic pain. Um, how do we do that in
Mhm.
in the day-to-day practice? So I think when you asked me, I think I'd had a full clinical day on that day, and I feel like I'm just really enjoying the process of cognitive change,
Mm.
and then watching the resourced human negotiate their way with the other skill sets available to them towards recovery. So I think at the time I thought, what is it that we're actually doing that people could easily do tomorrow?
Yeah.
Might be worth talking about that. I mean, it's very hard in a webinar, right? I think these things we need to practice it, and we have our own
Mhm.
internal models of the way things are that we need to update slowly with confirmation and all that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's where I was thinking.
Yeah. We'll come to some of those examples. But the practical sessions, everybody loves them because this is really what people want. They love the theory, they love the science, they want the why, but they really want to come away with some ideas for what they can use with their patients. So could you talk us through what some of those skills are, those practical techniques, and particularly the ones that, so you're using this with vulnerable groups, people that have found it difficult to engage with healthcare thus far. So if you could talk us through some of the practical skills, and then maybe we'll look at the ones that you have found most useful with those groups. How would that be? Would that be okay?
That would be fine, but I think I need to flag my 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 reservation. I can feel my reservations inside at the possible misunderstanding that I am primarily some sort of practical skills guru, which I
Okay.
really am not. Like my full-time job is as a clinical neuroscientist, and I'm
Mm,
involved in theoretical neuroscience and practical neuroscience and all that sort of stuff. I see clients for sure,
mm,
um, but I think what I might bring to this is the experimental end of what
okay.
we're trying, and how we're trying to package that into what we would describe as knowledge mobilization strategies. And this
Sure.
is a knowledge mobilization event in a way. So with that caveat, I really think physio in particular, but the pain field more broadly,
Okay.
is littered with people saying this is how you should do it. And I really don't feel comfortable in that zone.
No.
So if I focus the answer to that question on this is how we're doing it at the moment,
Hmm.
and we're recording it very carefully and understanding a little bit more about what lands and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Um, so I said that I'd had a clinical day today, and uh, I talked positively about that experience, and the emphasis of most of my clinical interactions. So today was primarily with elite performers
Hmm.
from a couple of different sporting codes and a creative arts code. And these are people who are professionals and uh, have had a slow return to performance
Mm.
journey. So I get called in that scenario. Um, and the approach that I'm taking is around this learn, do, connect, which was I think we might have spoken about before.
We
But
have, yeah.
and I got some really interesting emails from people on that call broadly along the lines of "I told you so." That they've been doing that forever, which is okay. But the learn part is the part that I think the evidence clearly says is the necessary bit. Not necessarily sufficient, but it's the necessary bit. I think the data are saying more and more. We ask, we now got data from 1,500 people saying, why do you think you recovered? And they identify things they learned and then they went around things about things differently as a result. So the practical,
Mm,
yeah, we're sort of getting towards the practical skills. And I think that I would prefer to focus on the the clinician or educators, and let's say the clinician's mindset around
okay.
the the interaction. And we talked about the values and vulnerability, opportunities and constraints last time. So outside of those things, I think there's a skill set, and you
Yeah.
can get better at the skill set. And I think that skill set is informed, in my view, by a deep understanding of what it is you're actually trying to achieve biologically. And the way that I approach that problem is what can I do that will enhance the chance initially of long-term potentiation in key synapses? So here comes the
Mm,
scientist. And I guess what that means is how do we get it to stick? And we've got a lot of guidance on this from educational scientists and from neuroscientists. And we're really just adapting their work in this space. So from my perspective, I really want the learner to, and if you'll excuse the metaphor, to take the data, the content, and chew over it and see what it tastes like and work out how it fits and manipulate it, and then do something with it.
mm,
And there are a few ways that as a clinician you can make that happen in the course of a normal treatment. We've tried to package these things into memorable lists of strategies, and uh, at EP3 and certainly in Oslo, I'll spend a lot of time on those strategies. But one that is so easy to do is to stop asking people to read stuff.
yeah.
Just don't ask them to read stuff. Ask them to do something with the content of that. So we use a lot just the acronym SALAD. And we've written
Mm,
about this, and if people are keen on those papers, that we've written about it. It's very simple, but instead of saying to someone, "Look, here's a couple of pages, like a fact sheet or something," read that. I never say that now. I say, "Here's a couple of highlighters, highlighter pens." Is that is that what you call them in the UK
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Europe?
Yeah. Yeah. Highlight fans.
Highlighter pen. Uh, the blue highlighter pen is for surprise. And the color is not important, right? But just making a difference. And the pink highlighter pen is you disagree with it. Here's a two-page fact sheet. I'd like you to
Mm,
go through that really carefully twice. The first time, can you highlight anything that you were surprised by? And there's probably at least, three or four things in there that I would expect you to find surprising. Now, even that little statement there is loaded with strategy. All right. They want to please me. So they want to find the things that I've got in my mind, even though I don't have anything in my mind. But they will want to go and find, yeah, so what should I find surprising? And for me, in a way, it doesn't matter what they find surprising. It's that they are looking for surprising things.
mm,
And then I might say, okay, I'll be seeing you in a week. So one of the people I saw today, I'll be seeing them in a week. I gave them a pack of 5 highlighter pens. And each day they have to read this same section of explained pain that I gave them. And the first day is surprise. The second day, they look for anything that they found annoying. Uh,
okay.
and and I said, if I've got a particular person now in my mind, I said, I think you'll find a couple of bits in here annoying. And actually, I do think you'll find them annoying. Uh, then I say, okay, this highlighter is for anything where you feel a bit lost. So we've got surprise, annoyed, lost.
Lost.
Uh, then the fourth day, go through that and find anything that you think applies to your situation. Or if it doesn't apply to your situation, you might think, oh, that applies to someone else's situation. Highlight
Mm,
that, and you might have to write something in the margin to remind yourself on that. On the fifth day is the disagree day. Find anything you disagree with there. And that the acronym of that is salad. And
got you.
I now bulk buy packs of 5 highlighter pens, and I give them the highlighter pens, and then people will come back a week later with the same
Mm,
document, just entirely highlighted. And some bits are black-ish because they've found it, they disagree, they find it annoying, and they got a bit lost,
mm,
stuff like that. And then I will say, okay, let's go through it. What was surprising about that? What was annoying about that? Do you want me to help you understand that bit that you got a bit lost at? Uh, so the it's always a conversation that is driven by their engagement and
mm.
spewing out of the
So much information in that exercise for the clinician, isn't there?
so much information. Yeah, like massive. And if we can tailor that where we recognize, look, I think this person would really benefit from getting their head around this particular concept.
Yeah.
And we've done a lot of work we've talked about before around what are the concepts that consistently come up as being seen to be important. We really want someone to get their head around that. I think they have to mull it over, work with it, change its
Mm.
shape, change the way they express it. And I would see salad as an easy win
Easy win.
because you cannot highlight what's surprising without feeling surprised by it.
Mm.
And then and you've inadvertently, well, not inadvertently, you've intentionally, but to them inadvertently, got them to read the same piece of information 5 times. And
Yeah.
repetition and recall is really, repetition is helpful for long-term potentiation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really simple strategy, and we've tested this now with teaching clinicians it and saying, so how did it work for you?
Mm.
And the feedback on that's really good. And we sort of trial these things and we chuck out the ones that don't land, and then we start telling people about the ones that do. So salad is one of the ones that do.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's really fascinating. Really good. And so practical and easy to take away.
Really easy to do. Even if the take home from this little bit was just don't ask people to read stuff.
Yeah.
Ask people to do something with the content. And there are
Mm.
heaps of other stuff you can get, other things you get people to do with the content. And the content might be a video instead of a reading thing. It doesn't really matter.
Okay. That's amazing. Thank you. So is that what else have you been looking at then from what you were saying, sort of your approach to the, I mean, to me that is a very practical end result from understanding the science and doing the research. What else have you started to, what other sort of practical techniques have you started to come up with that are changed perhaps from where you would have been?
Yeah, so another one of the acronyms that we've published, and I think it's worth iterating that uh, you got to learn. I think you have to learn how to do this stuff. Like
Yeah.
you might feel a bit weird the first time you try and salad something,
Mm,
uh, because you don't know how to sell it. You don't know how to advise it, and you're a health professional. What are you doing? Getting them to do your homework, and you have to work out how you're going to approach this idea. So there are
mm,
other things that you can do outside of that context, or you might have a patient who can't read, or you might have a patient who doesn't have internet. access.
Mm.
What can you do in the moment? And another acronym that we've worked on that is one of the strategies that has uh, landed in our sort of acceptability feasibility stuff. Clinicians tell us, okay, that yeah, I'm going to use that one, and they keep using it. Another one is reclaimer. So
Yes.
reclaimer is there's lots of strategies in there, and it might be a bit hard in this context to go through all of them, but one that and we map the different strategies in reclaimer to levels of learning according to a framework establishing conceptual change science called ICAP. And ICAP really it's upside down because the I is the most difficult and the P is
Mm.
the easiest. But uh, I stands for, in our modified version, interactive or inventive strategies. The C is collaborative, A is active, and P is passive.
Mm.
But in Reclaimer, the M, if I go straight to there, the M
Mm.
is one of the toughest things to ask people to do. Uh, it's not tough to ask, it's hard to do, and it stands for mode switch.
Okay.
So mode switch is when you might be trying to get across a concept, and then you ask someone, draw the concept for me. That's really hard,
Mm.
right? People look at it and say, how do I do that? So I don't know.
I've seen you
Have
do
a
this
crack.
live with
Yeah.
groups.
Yeah. Have a crack at it because you cannot get this wrong.
Yeah.
The and the there's so much juicy stuff in there, right, that you cannot get this wrong. One of the things that we absolutely know happens when you're under threat. So if you're in chronic pain and we're doing this work now in anxiety, depression, fatigue, post-traumatic stress, and
Mm.
loneliness. And what we recognize now is that if you are under threat, uh, it's hard to be flexible in your decision making and in your and to learn safety stuff. So if you can create the right environment and encourage people to do something like I just said, okay, so we've just I've spent some time here telling you how I think your nervous system might be wound up a bit, for
Mm.
example. Essential pain factor 2, persisting pain, overprotects us and prevents recovery. Uh, how would you draw that idea? And you let it hang, and people will be thinking, oh, I don't know. Well, you can't get it wrong. Have a crack at drawing it.
Okay.
The reason I'd like you to draw it is that if you can work out a way of drawing it, we know your brain will be changing during that process. So in a way, what they draw doesn't matter, unless what they draw is really clearly stipulating some sort of weird ideas or concepts. But I haven't seen
Mm.
that. But it's the process of and this goes back to the initial bit of I want them to grab this data and have to manipulate it and do something with it.
Mm.
And it's hard. It's hard to do. And you might not want to go straight there, but reclaimer M is right near the end. The easy wins for the reclaimer, the R is repeat, reflect, recall. Uh,
Mm.
repeat's easy. You just say exactly the same thing twice. So repeat is easy. You just say exactly the same thing
Mm.
twice. Uh, and that should have a neural effect because neurons that are activated multiple times change their plasticity.
Mm.
Easy. Recall, what can you remember when I was talking about the mode switch? Uh, can you remember what I said about that? Can feed that back to me. And they're having to dig into it,
Yeah.
manipulate the data, and spit it out again. And
Yeah.
reflect is something that there will be a whole lot of people already doing a lot of reflection based
Yeah.
teaching.
Okay. That's
Anyway,
so
there's
interesting.
just so
There's
much in it, and
yeah. So you've
uh,
done the R and the M of reclaimer, and there's obviously a ton more in there, which
yeah,
we
there
haven't
is.
got time to go through today. But there are just a couple of questions, Loz, at this point before we move on any further that we'll take. So Anne Livingston has said, does the threat, as in the example that you just gave for this mode switch, have to be real or can it be perceived? So when you were talking about the mode switch and you said, for
Yeah.
example, threat is makes it hard to make decisions, can you draw that? And saying, does it have to be real or can it be perceived?
Uh, I it certainly doesn't have to be real.
Mm,
The key is perceived threat, and whether or not it's real it's important,
mm,
but it's not the it's not the determinant of the legitimacy of the response.
okay. And you know when somebody draws that, does that automatic? What happens then? What's that? What's the effect of them actually drawing that thing that's a bit
I guess it all
abstract?
depends, and you I'm not advocating that we're using drawing as an assessment strategy.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not saying draw what that threat feels like or what that threat is.
Mm,
I That's not in my wheelhouse. What I am suggesting is that uh, someone might draw a concept that I have articulated in words. So
right.
I might have articulated in words the concept that when an organism is under threat,
Yes.
it finds it difficult to recognize safety cues.
Yeah. Got you.
That's the concept. There's a little idea.
Yeah.
Most which would be, and I guess in the real world, what I would do is I'd I'd have another crack at that. So I'd probably repeat it. So when an organism is under threat, it finds it more difficult to recognize safety cues. And I'd see whether I got the vibe that, and then I'd say, if you were to draw that idea, what would you draw? Here, have a crack at it. If you've got the
Yeah.
time, have a crack. What would it look like? Or describe for me a metaphor that captures that.
Mhm.
So you rely on them to
Got you.
invent something
Yeah.
to do stuff with this.
Is that also allowing you to understand if they got it
Yeah,
in the way that you're hoping that you were trying to impart it for them to reflect back to you whether you are saying the same thing, saying and understanding the same thing?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And metaphor and analogy. So I think one of the A's in reclaimer is an analogy and metaphor.
Yeah.
Can you think of an analogy of that or a metaphor of that? And yeah, you're right. They've come out with a metaphor, and the point of metaphors is you use something for which you have a shared understanding to
Yeah.
increase the understanding of something new. Uh, that will tell you if you have not succeeded in expressing the idea or imparting that understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank
And
you.
I had a great experience like that a long time ago. And so I think it's the final chapter in a book I wrote almost 20 years ago.
Hmm.
Far out. Called Painful
God.
Yarns. And there's a story in that about a fellow called uh, Demos, who's a truck driver. And I talked about a metaphor that I knew would land with him, which was around the electrical wiring in a particular brand of truck. Because having been a truck driver, I know that this brand of truck, lorry, you would call
Yeah.
it, are famous for dodgy wiring.
Okay.
And I wasn't getting him. And I eventually said, look, your situation is a little bit like the wiring and the brand of truck here is a Hino. You might not even have that over there, but it's a little bit like the wiring in a Hino. And he went, yeah, right. And I did the whole metaphor of
Yeah.
wiring in the in the high now, and I thought he's got it. He's on board. He's understanding this. How good am I? You know. And then he sort of leaned back and he said, "Yeah, I am never buying a high note." So he didn't get that it was a metaphor at all. So I'd failed miserably. But
Okay.
so giving him engagement with the story identified for me, wow, all that work and I didn't land it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, good. That's nice. Really nice. Okay, and I've got a question here from Alison Fenton. Thank you, Alison, for your question. And that just goes back to the salad. Does it matter how long between rereads and highlighting sessions when doing salad, e.g., patients may be attending weekly or fortnightly?
Not in my view, because you are asking them to manipulate the data at
Hmm.
some stage, and then when they're back with you, you are asking them to manipulate it again because they have to explain why they highlighted that. One thing that might depend on time is that I found the longer, the more likely it is that people will say, I don't know why I highlighted that, actually. Well, I don't find that annoying anymore.
Right.
But that's a great in, right? You as the educator can say, oh, why don't you think it's annoying anymore? Why aren't you annoyed by that?
Mm.
Doesn't matter, but to have a conversation about the data
Mm.
requires them to manipulate the data with their own hardware and software to do that.
Mm.
Excuse the
Cool.
metaphors.
Cool. And Anita says, where can we read more about Reclaimer?
We touch really briefly on Reclaimer in a paper. Uh, I can put a link in the chat. Would that help?
Yeah, for sure.
Or
Or what I can just I'll
send to
put it in
you?
the YouTube notes. So maybe you could just ping that to me later, Loz, and when I upload this
Sure.
to YouTube. Now,
Cool. Yeah.
would
So
you
the
like?
only place we've really written about it is briefly in a paper.
Yeah. Okay. When was that? When did you start using that an acronym, the Reclaimer?
Uh, I probably started um, 4 years ago.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
So the
Great.
strategies I've been using and we've been teaching people for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, some of them not. No, it's probably not that long actually, Joe. It's probably a couple of years. But
Mm.
but the efforts of packaging this into strategies that clinicians can use to just remind themselves what have I got available to me here? What's a little quick trick?
Yeah.
Uh, what
Okay.
of the reclaimer? And we have clinicians who might have reclaimer up on their desk in the department staff room with
Hmm.
little explanations of it, and they can just be reminded that you can easily say the C is contrast, contradiction, and contrast. Compare, contrast, and contradict. So easy. Just
What does that look like then? So we want to talk about C for a bit because we've got a few more minutes. If you want to have a go through one
well,
of the other
yeah. So
letters in Reclaimer, compare. What was it?
uh,
Compare, contrast.
compare, contrast, and contradict, and the contradict is probably more a signal to clinicians to celebrate when their patients are finding the contradictions in what they're doing.
Okay.
Because they're either right and you've contradicted yourself, or they're wrong, but they're messing with the data and looking for the wrong. And for me, that's a sign that they're going to be learning.
Okay.
So to celebrate the contradictions. And I think to congratulate people on so all of our language around here is C-based. Congratulate people on spotting the contradiction and
Mm.
emphasize, I might say I said this today. Uh, that's a great pickup. So someone had fed something back to me. So that's a great pickup. You're right. When I said that, it was probably a bit lazy from me. Uh, I should have said it this way, but I'm stoked that you picked that up because you spotting a contradiction like that tells me your brain is processing this information
Yeah.
and working out. So it's easy as a clinician when we get challenged to be
Yeah.
really threatened by that.
Yeah.
Uh, but you talk to any primary school teacher, and when their kids started pointing out stuff, they think that's great. That
Yeah.
student is engaged.
Yeah. And they're yeah, absolutely. 100%. Love that. Mick's got a
And the
question.
rest of the C, compare, how would this compare with what you used to think about this idea? Can you contrast for me what you think I've said
Hmm.
here about this and what you think your partner would say about this?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so
As an
great because
example.
this the phraseology that you're demonstrating here. This is exactly the sort of thing that we're always getting asked for. You sort of started the session saying, we'll go so practical, but I'm coming at it from this angle. But just some of these little phrases people take away, and
Yeah.
having the acronym as a sort of framework to hang all these things off, and then just the examples of questions that you may say to somebody in front of you. Really, really useful for people. Really, really
Okay.
useful. Thank you.
Thanks for the encouragement, John.
I used to be a primary school teacher.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah,
There you go. So you should be running this.
you're absolutely not. We've got a question from Mick. Do you think that it is essential to always have an action associated with a cognitive challenge to change, update internal models? And is there any clinical situation where you wouldn't use one? Great question, Mick.
Action. An action.
Is it essential to always have an action associated with cognitive challenge to change or update internal models?
Yeah. Uh, I will approach that question in the spirit of this evening from what I might do with someone in front of me. Uh, I think I would say no to that. But I think if I'm limiting it to a non-action, I'm going to limit the neurophysiological impact of anything that I do. Uh, I suspect, Mick, that you might be asking that question from um, a more theoretical predictive encoding idea, but I think I think for me it's a great question. As usual, Mick will get me thinking, and I think more and more I do try and get people doing, uh, whether it's an action or whether it's and I would say this is an emotion. I think that
Okay.
uh, the passive stuff, we can mess with the emotion. And once someone's sufficiently engaged in the story, then they're sort of undergoing actions because they're working with themselves and they're feeling it and they're matching your body posture and
Mm,
that sort of stuff. That tells me that they're not just passive recipients of the data. Yeah, but
mm.
I think there is a role for passive. Do I think that? Oh, I'd love to know what Mick thinks about this. But uh, passive techniques are not useless, but maybe that's because they're not actually passive. When they're well delivered, they they trigger active inference through the process.
Okay. What do you think to
See,
that,
this
Mick?
is why I can't wait to sit down in our session at EP3 with Mick and be able to say, "What do you think?" And there are other people at EP3 who are going to be great to have that conversation with.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
We just
Anyway, off
bat
track.
that one back at Mick, shall we? And we're going to have this chat with him at EP3 because it might be too long an answer to type.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Mick, for the question. That's absolutely brilliant. But I love what you said then. It's not necessarily action, it can be emotion.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, I'm a physiologist, right? So, emotion for me is a bodily event, and I use the word feeling to grab uh, what a lot of people call emotions. So, people describe psychologists see emotions one way, physiologists see emotions a different way, and emotions are bodily events. And if we present data in an educational context passively, which the original iterations around explain pain were almost entirely passive
Mm,
didactic stuff, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but if we do it well and we trigger emotions, then those emotions are in. I hope Mick would be happy with this. Those emotions are generated by predictions according to internal models. So we're
Mm.
activating generative models.
Mick has
So
just
actually,
said
in the
that,
ICAP framework, we've gone into
sorry.
active already.
Okay, I think you both in agreement there. He's just said, I think you've answered exactly how I would answer, to be honest. Action is not limited to just doing something. It is in an emotion.
Ah, there you go.
Perfect. Okay. And on that note, I'd say that's a really good place to just pull this right back round. So I have absolutely loved this conversation, Orima. Thank you. And we did end up actually getting very practical. And I love the acronyms that you're using, the salad and the reclaimer. And so useful. There's just so much in there. And yeah, and I really enjoyed hearing actually the language that you may use with patients in front of you as well, because yeah, it's very important. And this is so often just what people need, a little prompts to give them ideas for how to interpret these sort of acronyms in real life situations. So thank you. We're just going to ask you just for a couple of minutes now at the end here, Loz, just to talk a little bit about EP3. We are going to be in Manchester in the beginning of June. I think it's around, is it 6th
Getting
and 7th?
close, right?
Yeah, it's not far. So you're going to be here. Dave Butler's going to be here. Mick Thacker's going to be there. Tasha Stubbson's going to be there. Brendan's going to be there, and a couple of other people as well.
We've got Anne
Hopefully,
Mulders coming over
and
from
oh yeah,
Belgium. Anne does just great work.
mm,
We are having to, Tasha in particular, is having to coach her to slow her down enough to make the clinical nuggets visible because there's clinical gold in what Anne does. So
what does Anne
Anne
do?
is an
What's her
experimental
field?
psychologist,
Okay, yeah.
and she's a world leader on understanding safety and danger learning, the
Oh,
utilization of social interactions
yeah,
and context. And one thing that we absolutely know uh, in systems that are chronically making pain or anxiety or depression or post-traumatic stress or loneliness or fatigue, safety learning is impaired and danger learning is facilitated. Uh, and some of Anne's work really delves into that. And uh, Tasha will have the privilege of bringing Anne's work into the clinical context really
amazing.
clearly. That'll be great. So Anne will be there. Abby Tabor will be there. Abby's at University of Western England or Bristol, somewhere there.
Okay,
She did her PhD in our group in Australia, and she's gone on to do some really interesting work at the intersection between uh, some of this predictive encoding type stuff and anthropology and connection. Cool. It's cool stuff. She does cool work and she's an outstanding person. I mean, one of the rules of whoever comes to EP3 is no dickheads. Right. So you got to be a great person.
it's
Abby fits that bill. Obviously, Mick does as well. Brendan Mowat from Noy Group,
Yeah.
whose PhD looks around these ideas of perceived fragility and vulnerability, and how do we help people to adapt their own models away from fragility towards
Mm,
adaptation. Luke Postlethwaite, as an Australian exercise physiologist, he's got a lot of done a lot of teaching. He's currently doing his PhD, a really exciting PhD. Uh, Runs very successful clinical practices across Melbourne, and he'll be talking a bit more practical about, so how do people come in? He's got half an hour. How does he do stuff that
yeah.
promotes uh, better clinical outcomes, consistent with evidence-based care, that is cutting edge on the stuff that we're talking about? He's got some great,
Brilliant.
constraint-induced movement therapies. They're just great.
Fantastic.
Constraint-based movement therapies, and I've learned a lot from Luke and from Brendan, and actually as I go through the lineup, from Mick, from Dave, from Abby, from Anne. I've learned so much from all these people. I sometimes, well, I've thought about EP3 and thought, maybe I should just step out because they're all legends,
Stop.
and they're doing great work. I'm not going to step out because I want to be part of it. But
Oh my God, I can't
it's
wait.
going to be
That
great.
sounds so
It's genuinely
cool.
going to be great.
What a fantastic. Yeah, that is just so cool. I can't wait for those sessions. And the thing about EP3 is that it is just there's just such rich content, isn't there? So many different facets, so many different people with their own expertise and absolute leaders in their field. So look, if anybody watching or watching on catch up is interested in attending EP3, there are still some tickets for sale, I believe, for another couple of weeks. Come and check it out. All the information is online. It is going to be amazing, not only the content, but a really fun event. We'll all be there. We'll all be available to talk and take questions, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I believe. I can't wait.
It's going to be hard work. So
Oh,
don't come if you just want to sit back and sniff on a durry at the back of the room. But it'll be great. Like EP3s, without a doubt, have been transformative. They're
yeah,
great.
and a highlight, absolute highlight. Thank you so much, Lorimer, once again. I love doing the sessions with you. They're a lot of fun. I learn a lot, and everybody in the audience really enjoys them too.
Thanks,
So
Joe.
thank you. Thanks for your time this evening, and thank you to everybody who's joined us live today. Thank you for everybody that's watching on catch up. We hope you've enjoyed it, and enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, and maybe we'll see a few of you at EP3. Thanks again. Okay, take
Great.
care, everyone.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks,
Cheers,
everyone.
Lars. Take care.
Bye.